Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. On the Logistics of Logistics, I talk to experts in logistics and transportation, warehousing, fulfillment, supply chain, and of course, technology. And during these interviews, I'm always the one asking the dumb questions. I ask the dumb questions so you don't have to. Today's topic is solving the $1.8 trillion inventory distortion problem with my friend Karl Swensen. Karl is the CEO and co-founder of Pologic, an AI-enabled tech company focused on reducing lost sales for retailers, brands, and manufacturers due to failure points in the supply chain and selling processes. Having too much of the wrong inventory and not enough of the right inventory is an age-old problem. Karl and the Pologic team have a solution. To learn more, please take a listen to my conversation with Karl Swensen. How's it going, Karl?
Hey, Joe, doing well. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to talk to you, Karl. We've been talking offline and we talked the other day. I'm very excited to talk about this problem because I think it is such a big problem you guys are solving, and you've educated me quite a bit about this inventory distortion problem. But first, Karl, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Yeah, hey, so Joe, Karl Swensen, CEO and co-founder of Pologic, and we're based in Atlanta, Georgia.
What does Pologic do?
So Pologic, I guess naming the company, we wanted to make sure it represented what we do, and we're all about providing logic to pull inventory to the consumer, right? So retailers, manufacturers, they bring it to the consumer, give them what they want, right? And not all the things they don't want.
Yep. And when we think about, I know you're an industrial engineer, when we think about lean is all about, if you can set it up right, is you want always it to be pull, no push systems, pull. The old world was push, meaning I'll make it and then I'll push it out to my retail stores, or I'll build a whole bunch of inventory and then hopefully sell it. Those are the olden days. Now we want to get to the place where we say there's demand upstream. I'm hearing that demand, I'm feeling that demand, and I'm able to pull rather than push.
That's correct, yeah. And we think we have a pretty unique approach on how we do this, and it'd be great to share that today with you.
So who are your customers?
Yeah, so we're focused on anybody that sells to the end consumer, makes and sells to the end consumer. So retailers, brands, manufacturers of products, right? And right now as a company, we're focused on high value products. We've set a $100 price point or more, but that's not a hard rule, right? And we can do even less expensive things, but we've just chosen to focus on high value.
So what problem are you solving for those people?
Yes, we are focused on, this is really well articulated by a company or advisory group called IHL. They've actually coined this term inventory distortion. And what do I mean by inventory distortion? They look at inventory distortion as they define it is having too much of the wrong inventory and then not enough of the right inventory that customers want and demand. And so they've actually estimated this like a $1.8 trillion lost sale opportunity annually, right? And this is a global number. And that's a lot of that, 2/3 of that is probably the lost sales in terms of not having the right inventory. Another third is having too much of the wrong inventory.
Yeah. And by the way, that problem is basically began somewhere along the lines of the Industrial Revolution, where we were able to start making stuff at scale and sharing it. And we have more junk in our lives than ever before. And I don't know if you ever pay attention when grandma and grandpa get older and they're like, hey, take this sofa, take this. Everyone's trying to hand off their stuff. You can't give it to the kids who are in their 60s and you can't give it to the grandkids who are in their 30s. There's just too much junk. But to your point, there is the wrong inventory. And we started really getting a lot of wrong inventory during COVID. We didn't know what the market wanted. We didn't know that we could get it delivered. So we just started ordering. And when I say we, the retailers. And so I heard people say this for the last few years, have to work out all this inventory, this excess, that the stuff we didn't want, the consumers don't want, the stuff that's marked down, the stuff that gets, who knows where it ends up, but it doesn't end up with end consumers.
Yeah, and actually IHL, they run this inventory distortion report every year, and they estimated it was like almost $2 trillion coming out of COVID. And you saw it in the headlines. The big retailers talked about having way too much inventory. So that was a failure in forecasting, but that's a once in a lifetime event, COVID, or hopefully once in a lifetime.
Hope so.
And so we get a good audience. People, we talk about having too much of the wrong inventory, not having the right inventory. We get a good audience because people have been living through the pain of this the last couple of years.
Yeah. And I said to you earlier that while we were prepping that when we talk about inventory, I think there's 30% of the stuff we make, whether it's food or clothes or auto parts, never ends up in the end consumer's hands. So it is scrapped. In case of food that's perishable, we throw it out. We know that's happening. But we're always trying to figure out what the demand is from the customer, and we're doing the very best we can. But the nature of forecasting is you're never right on. If I say, oh, I think I'm going to sell 1,421 sweaters this month at that store, the chances of you being right are, it's like a lottery ticket. There's no way.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We have some really great technology and research out of Georgia Tech we've used. Really key to our solution is being able to accurately forecast demand. And we've got some really good tools around that. And once you have that demand, understand the demand, then you can then optimize the inventory and have the right inventory.
Yep, that's the name of the game, because we have all these demands on the supply chain to be more sustainable. And we worry about electric vehicles, but if we are building 30% more stuff than we need, or growing 30% stuff more than we need and throwing it out, we have to stop that. Stop transporting the 1/3 of stuff that never needs to be transported. Anyway, Karl, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started Pologic.
Yeah, so going way back, I'm pretty much an Atlanta guy. I moved here when I was 12. Grew up in the South, though, different places, Mississippi, Arkansas. My parents are from Wisconsin, so people say you don't sound like you're from the deep South. So I didn't really grow up in a Southern household. But anyway, I went to Georgia Tech. I studied industrial and systems engineering at Georgia Tech, and great program. Some of the big thought leaders back in the day, simulation, supply chain, warehouse design, all the professors I had were fantastic. And then I co-opted. I worked to help pay through college. I worked with two different manufacturers and learned. I did drafting and manufacturing, helping set up manufacturing plants. So I did that during my college careers. But then coming out of college, I joined a consulting firm, Kurt Salman Associates, KSA. And KSA is very well known in the retail consumer goods space. And I joined the supply chain practice. So I was there almost 15 years, did everything in supply chain, logistic, network design, inventory modeling. We built distribution centers, pretty highly automated. We built our own WMS back in the early 90s, which quite frankly was state of the art at the time. And I wrote the functional specs for that WMS and just lots of other things. Basically, I did about everything I could in supply chain. And then after that, I got involved in some other areas. I worked at Home Depot in store operations, ran the labor team, big responsibility there, managing $8 billion in payroll, 325,000 associates, all the systems and processes to manage that. Also worked at Oracle Retail, the genesis for the starting of that, where Larry Ellison decided to get into the retail industry vertical and bought some of the leading packages. So I was fortunate to be part of that team and had some really great accounts and working there. And then I was at almost 8 years at Cognizant, where we built a retail consulting practice, retail and supply chain consulting practice. And I had a great growth trajectory on that. So very proud of my time there and the folks I worked with.
So when and why did you start Pologic with your partners?
Yeah, so it was almost 2.5, 3 years ago. I was introduced to the co-founders of Pologic, Dr. Benoit and the other co-founders, and they were just starting the company, or it was starting to come together. And I saw the problems that Pologic solved across the supply chain, the retailers, with the consumer, with the retailers, with manufacturing. And I just got really excited about it. And I thought this could be very big, right? And just the way they're thinking about it, it's different, it's refreshing, it's unique. And I really like the simplicity of it too, the way Dr. Benoit thinks of this and the product availability concepts.
And he's a Georgia Tech guy, right?
Yeah, he's Dr. Benoit. So believe it or not, we were both at Tech at the same time. I was a lowly undergraduate. He was, I think, a PhD student at the time, but he's from Canada, from Quebec, but came back to Tech about 8 years ago to run the Supply Chain and Logistics Institute. So that's quite a large organization. They work with leading companies, retailers, manufacturers. So he's seen it all. And all of our work at Pologic is based on his research and concepts.
I love it. I love it. And you had experienced these. So when they described the problem, It wasn't like it was theoretical to you. You're like, yeah, I get it. If you're at Home Depot as the season is ending for one product and you go, damn, we got a lot of extra. We ordered too much, or you run out. And again, that's the nature of forecasting. It's never correct. And I know we're trying to get better and better at it. And we got a number of points to discuss. But one more time, what is inventory distortion? But to talk a little bit of IHL. Who are they again?
Yeah, IHL Group, a great advisory group led by Greg Buzak. They do a great job with industry analysis and thought leadership and technology. And so I've always enjoyed their work. And then when I joined Pologic, I saw their inventory distortion report. They do it, I believe, every year. They update the numbers and report on it. And so that perfectly describes what we're solving at Pologic. And again, inventory distortion is not having the right inventory, either too much of the wrong inventory or too little of the right inventory, right? The consumers want. And it's a huge problem. They said out of COVID, it's 2 trillion. 2023, it's 1.8 trillion. So it's just a big number. And companies have been trying to solve this for a long time, right? With imperfect information, data, technology, et cetera, you name it. I've seen all the large, huge projects that haven't always worked, right?
So I talked to you about this the other day when we were talking about this topic, that I wear Hokas, the shoes. I love them. They're ugly sometimes. The kind I buy, I like the light colored ones. So the light might be gray or white. And I probably bought them for the last 10 years, maybe longer. Anyway, when I go to the store every once in a while, I'll go, oh, I need a new pair. So I know exactly my size. I go to the store and they'll always go, oh, hey, here we go. And they'll be the colors I don't want. And you go, ah. And I would buy the white with the blue trim. I'll buy the gray with the darker gray trim. I'm not buying the black ones. I think they're too ugly. I'm not buying this one. So there's a number of them that I'm not buying. And they'll have all of those in my size. And I always just think, And then they'll say, we can order them. And they do. And it's a week later or whatever it is. And I always think, yeah, we as consumers experience this all the time. We go, I love this sweater. Do you have it in my size? Nope, but we have it in everyone else's size. We live it.
Hey, Joe, so Dr. Benoit's research is around product availability. How do you optimize inventory based on what consumers really want? Not just features, preferences of what features, functions, colors, but also substitutes. What's the probability your Hoka is not available? Maybe you want, what's your favorite color, blue or something? I don't know. So
the lighter color, yeah, whatever.
The lighter color, okay. So gray's not available, but there's a light blue available. There's an 80% probability you'll accept that, right?
Yes.
Pink, what's the probability? Maybe 5%, right? Or very low, maybe 0%, right? So those are the kinds of things. That's how you actually shop. And also your wait time. How long will you wait for inventory? Will you wait no time or will you wait 5 days? All those that's reality in how people shop. And we mimic all that. We all those concepts of substitution, wait times, your preferences, we take all that information and we use it to measure all inventory in the supply chain. We have this concept called Product Availability Readiness, or PAR, and we use that to measure all inventory, and we use that to make inventory deployment decisions. What we've been told is this is really unique how we look at this and how we then solve using our sophisticated algorithms and models based on this PAR concept and some other things we use as well to try to have the right inventory. Plus, we have some tools to help on the front end to help you get what you're looking for. That's also part of our solutions.
Yeah, and this was the most recent case, my Hoka dilemma. They didn't have what I wanted, and then they said, we'll order it for you. And I was like, cool. Now, they've delivered to my house before, so I went, and this time they said, we can deliver it to you within a week for $5 or in 2 days or 3 days for $25. And I was like, I don't really need new ones. That I wasn't in an emergency, but I said, yeah, make it a week. And it was $5. And I thought, oh, who cares? They didn't get there in a week. But I will say, as a modern consumer, I normally feel like, what am I paying extra to buy a $200 pair of shoes to be delivered in 2 days, which is standard for Amazon? So there was a sense of, I don't know, maybe it's entitlement that what I'm used to, but getting back to it, there's my size, the color, And then how is it going to be delivered? Now your PAR solution can take all of those inputs and give them a better solution.
We take those as inputs of how we measure all inventory in the supply chain. And then we use that information as well as the demand we forecast into the future. We do thousands of customer simulations with our solution, what we do to really understand demand and what it's going to be in the future. And then we apply the PAR score to help us optimize inventory to make sure we put the right inventory in the right locations. If it's a retailer, it could be store locations. E-commerce, we're agnostic. We don't care about whether it's e-commerce sales or store sales. We work with both of those. We're both of those channels, sales channels. Plus with manufacturers, what manufacturers ultimately have to manufacture and hold this inventory. What should they hold, right? Based on the PAR score. Again, the PAR is the common denominator. We use this metric. And let me just say one thing about the PAR. It's just simply a percentage. So if let's say it's 0 to 100%, if I'm 85% PAR at a given product category and location, it means you have an 85% probability of satisfying the next customer that comes in. So it's future looking, it's predictive. And it's a simple way to tell, hey, is my inventory right? Yeah, I got 85% PAR, right? I've got 85% chance. Well, that's not great. We like to be up in the high 90s, right? And the opposite of that is if I'm 85% PAR in a given location, product category, it means I have 15% lost sales. So we measure lost sales, right? So I've been told what we do is pretty unique. No one actually solves for lost sales, right? So for example, I walk into a store, what I want's not available. I walk out, that's a lost sale. People never measure that. They don't know that, right? Anyway.
Yeah, it's also if you can start to educate your retailers to say, okay, Joe asked for this color, this size. There's a 85% chance because I'm not saying all sales associates do this, but some go, nope, we don't have your size. That's it. Conversation over. Come back tomorrow, or we're getting a truckload next week. They're not considering how do I keep Joe as a customer? How do I get him into this other pair of shoes? And I think also they don't necessarily have visibility into what I would buy. So if I said I want this color and they say, sorry, we don't have any of those, they got to go back into their inventory in the back and say, oh, there's just shelves full of shoes. I don't know what Joe wants, right? I'm not going to, and it might even seem inappropriate to say, how about these? But if you knew that there's an 85% or a 95% chance that Joe is going to buy these, why not?
Yeah. And Joe, just so the primary thrust of Pologic, we're really about inventory, managing that properly, inventory optimization, stores, distribution centers, what you manufacture. But we also have built some tools around for salespeople and customers to express their preferences. What are they looking for? What's the demand? This can be in physical retail or even e-commerce. And then let's find that, right? What are the options available to you? And let's say you want something, it's in stock, great. If it's not in stock, when do you need it? I need it in 2 days, right? So we show you all the options available in 2 days, right? Like it could be as a percent fitness to requirements. Hey, there's another shoe. It's not light gray, but it's light, it's blue. Is that acceptable? Yeah. So those are the things we're trying to do on the back end to some of our customers to help the salespeople and the customers actually find products that fit, given the realities of the supply chain, right? It's Pologic. We want to do the best thing up front to have the right inventory, the right locations. But then, end of the day, you need to be able to react and what customers want and be able to execute on that.
We want more. We want our demand signals to be perfect. They aren't. And we're probably not anywhere close to that. But if they can't be perfect, let's improve them. And that's to the point. And you called that PAR score is product availability ratio, and it's just a percentage. This is the percentage that this works as a substitution.
The probability, if you're that, the probability you're going to satisfy that next customer, say at a given location in that product category.
So I've been using the example of Hoka's, but does this work in grocery stores?
It does, yeah. It can. They're lower price points, so how much are you going to spend time trying to substitute?
Yeah. I get it.
Certain things. We can, as a company, we focus on higher value products right now, just because we think that's a sweet spot for us.
So we'll get back to PAR in a minute. You talked to me the other day about this alignment of retail suppliers and how PAR can help me there. And you called it the Parfix solution, which is a little corny, but I like it.
Yeah, so I think a good example is one of our customers. They're a manufacturer of tractors, utility trucks, And so we started working with them. They have an independent dealer network, right? And we are using the PAR score to measure all the inventory they have at dealer locations. They have some holding places of inventory that supplies dealers, plus what they manufacture. And we're using the PAR score to help tell dealers, here's the optimal mix of tractors and truck you should be carrying to make sure the PAR score is high, 90, 95% higher. So you have in stock what customers want, right? And if it's not exactly in stock, what are the substitutes? Also, how quickly can you get it delivered to them within their timeframes? And that PAR metric applies not only to the dealer locations, but they're holding, but also what to manufacture. You can actually base your manufacturing based on that rich demand signal, what consumers are looking for. So that's, I don't know if that explains it, but that's in a
Yeah,
nutshell.
I know this. When I was still doing when I was at a logistics company, we had one of our customers sold commercial lawnmowers, the ones, the riders, and they're expensive. I think they're probably 20 grand, maybe more. I don't even know now, but those guys would come into a dealer and our customer was the distributor. And when they would come into a dealer, they were going to buy that day. And what we learned was that they're going to use it that day. They'll take it with their trailer and they will go and cut grass. And so they would look at that and say, we lost revenue today because that tractor isn't available or that riding mower isn't available. And they would leave and go buy it somewhere else. So the company we were a distributor for was very strict with us. And so if something didn't deliver, we oftentimes, we were doing a lot of less than truckload, we would expedite it because they say, that's a lost sale, plain and simple. If it's not to our dealer, it's a lost sale.
Yeah, and we work based on whatever the consumer's like, right? So if we know for that product category and the customer for that customer, they're not going to wait, that'll be reflected in our algorithms and we'll have inventory there, right? But if we know, Joe, if they can substitute, maybe if this one's not available, maybe this one, so you don't need as much inventory. You don't need that safety stock. You can have cycle stock, right, to manage demand. And if there's the safety, the what ifs and whatever, maybe you can use a substitute. But if they can't, we'll drive inventory there. So based on what the consumer wants and their wait time.
I think right now there's a little bit of just an intuition or gut thing that we're doing, right? We know I told you just now that our distributor that was our customer said, we lose sales when we don't have it there. So you will have it there. They treated less than truckload like guaranteed. So to keep the business, we treated it like guaranteed, but we all know it's not guaranteed. And that's a big loss.
Yeah. And Joe, we actually use pretty precise numbers around all this stuff. How long will the customer wait? What's the probability they'll accept a substitute? Not just a SKU level, but at features, functions, colors. And so it's pretty scientific. So if you look under the covers, you go, wow.
Yeah. And I think if I'm that dealer who's selling that tractor or the riding mower, and I know that guy's going to leave and he's going to go down the street and buy it from my competitor, and I have some percentages around that, now it's not just an intuition or gut feeling. Hey, this is a lost sale. And potentially we lose them not only for this sale, but for their next sale because they like the other guy better now.
Yeah. And Joe, that's the biggest. Some of our customers will say, I never knew I was losing this much in sales. So every day customers walk out of your stores or e-commerce sites, they don't buy, right? Why? If it's lack of inventory or not having it in a timely manner, you may or may not know that, right? So we're trying to surface that, put a metric to it, and then go after it in terms of helping satisfy customers. So
speaking of another big ticket item, if you look at people who are walking around a used car lot in particular, but also just dealer lots, they're going to buy relatively quickly. And a lot of the dealers treat it that way, where they say, hey, Karl, don't just look at this. We can get any car in the world here tomorrow. Let us know. Don't let you leave, because they know you're like, I was looking for this kind of truck and I didn't see it here. I'm going to wander down to the next dealership. And if they have it, you might very well buy it. Yeah. And that's a challenge. And again, everybody who's serving these retailers, we need to help them.
But the other side of this, all that inventory is expensive, especially cars. You've got $50,000, $100,000 car in the lot. How many can you really carry to satisfy every possible permutation, combination of what a customer might want? So what we do is put some smarts around what's the right mix, the par measure. Let's have that. And then if we know there's some wait time, let's set up that wait time, the delivery to satisfy if it's not in stock. We know that we can get it within their time frame. So again, those are all the things we model as part of our solution, right? That's part how we solve for it.
So is this a technology solution that does it integrate with my WMS or my ERP, or how do I use Pologic?
We're not like this huge system you implement. We're kind of more a data play. We don't replace your current systems. We tend to augment them and we work alongside them. Think of us like a smart brain sitting on top of your existing ordering systems, right? So we take data feeds about, we want to understand initially just to set up your locations, retail, warehouses, manufacturing, where you're located, how you order today, like cycle times, and then also product category. What are your products? What are you selling? The SKUs, the descriptions. We use that. And then we also take sales and inventory data. We like some history there, like 6 months, 24 months, so we can see seasonality and trends. And then we then track that. We take a data feed either daily or weekly about sales and inventory. We use that information to simulate this demand I talked about into the future. We can simulate next week, a month from now, 6 months from now. We really go pretty far out. We need to for our manufacturing customers. And then we run that data against our models and run our algorithms to come up with the optimal inventory deployments, right? So we use that. When we first set up, we can really show the kind of the status of their inventory. Like, what is the lost sales they're losing? They're losing 15, 20% of revenue, not having the right things. And guess what? We're solving for availability. We want to have the right inventory, right locations. But then once we do that, we say, listen, 30, 40, 50% of your inventory is unproductive. You don't need all this other stuff. And so we work with customers. They're not going to get rid of that immediately. They'll bleed that off or work it out through markdowns or other means of reducing inventory. But so it's a process working with our clients.
Yeah. And another conversation we had the other day is some very successful retail chains like Costco, Trader Joe's, Aldi, and then I'll use Target, their grocery department, which is curated, just a less choice. But again, I like the choices they give me. I think if you and I, just being logistics and supply chain guys, if we had a choice, you'd say, oh, I'd much rather have to deal with that inventory than, say, Meijer or Costco, Walmart, who have 100,000 SKUs or more. And again, I know that's retail, and I know you guys are more on the big stuff, but the more SKUs you have, the harder it is to predict what's going to sell.
And it's harder for the consumer to pick, right? How do you, sometimes the simpler choice is more pleasurable in terms of shopping, right? You don't have to make so many decisions, right?
Yeah. So if you're looking for a TMS, please consider my friends at Revenova. Revenova is a cloud-based transportation management system built on the Salesforce platform, which means it has a built-in CRM and a higher level of security, reliability, and performance. Revenova is used by many of the top 3PLs, brokers, carriers, and shippers because it has all the features. It's multimodal, and it comes with lots of premium features like predictive pricing. If you want to learn more, please visit revenova.com. That's REVENOVA.com, or check the show notes for a link to my interview with Mike Horvath, one of the founders of Revenova. Sometimes think about this inventory problem that we have and that you guys are solving if we just had fewer choices. So when we look and say, oh yeah, I went to buy a car, I just bought a new used car. I always buy used. and when I went and bought my new used car, I just thought, okay, I don't like the Highline, too fancy. I want the big engine. And I remember I was like, I want a light color so I don't have to wash it all the time. And I was thinking to myself I don't like all the choices. So when I went to the dealership, I joked to the sales guy, I wish somebody just assigned me a new car. Said, hey, Joe, here's your new car. Here's what it costs. Cool. Thank you. I don't like all that.
Yeah. Actually, that kind of comes out in the data. When we look at the data, that's not like a focus of ours is to streamline their SKU base. But if you see low par product, it's low par. We see the features and functions, the colors that are low par. Then why you have all this stuff? So that something comes out. And Joe, I want to mention one other thing I didn't mention before is we work smartly with existing systems. We're not looking to replace them. And we can be up and running in a few weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. We're not a big system implementation. We get a data feed, we run our models, we then show the results, and then we execute the replenishment instructions. That's how we work, is we just replace, hey, instead of using your current logic, replace this logic, right? So order this quantity from this vendor in this sequence, right, or this cycle. That's how we work. And by the way, I mentioned I worked at Oracle in my past. We had implement inventory management systems. And when we implement them, we'd say, hey, we have 6 algorithms that we need to map all your SKUs to. We implement this inventory management and ordering system. And if you don't like these algorithms, everyday replenishment, seasonal, whatever, promotion, whatever the logic was, you can use your own logic, right? So we would just provide an API or a data feed to pass information. We'd say, hey, just tell us what to replenish, we'll do it. That's exactly how we work. So it's a simple implementation. We just work through replenishment instructions. And yeah, so and most all major systems have this, SAP, Oracle. One of our customers wants us to work with Shopify. So we're integrating with that too in the near future.
So when you talk to your customers, are you telling them we'll save you money or we'll make you more sales or help you do, or is it a little of both or a lot of both, I should say?
It's actually, we're really focused on, let's have the right inventory, right? You're losing sales. We've seen customers improve sales up to 30%, right? With our approach and technology. So that's our primary focus. But at the same time, we identify, listen, you've got way too much unproductive inventory. You can get rid of 35% of this or 40, right? That's what we tell people, but it's not I think our primary focus, I'd say, is let's have the right product, the right inventory. Let's make the sale. Everyone is usually about sales. Then we can take a look at the unproductive, get that off the balance sheet over time.
Yep. Now, I know you work with a very large retailer that does hardware that everyone would recognize, but we're not going to talk about their name. And you guys work with them. You've been working for them a while. What is this? What are the results you're seeing there?
Yes. In that, we're working on the e-commerce aspects of it. So if you have e-commerce, you have lots of, let's say, e-commerce facilities. You have to identify which locations, how much you should stock and which locations. You just can't put all the inventory everywhere in the quantities. It's just not financially feasible. So using our approach and what we're doing, we're providing guidance and recommendations of, okay, this item, it should be located in these facilities, not everyone, but the ones that are closest to the consumer, right? In these quantities. And we have some unique ways in how we approach it. We look at dynamically assigning inventory over time to different locations. Yeah, and we're seeing great sales lift, sales and profitability increases. So yeah, I'm not going to go into details, but yeah, and we continue to work with this customer.
So does this get better over time as I can look and say, here's what we did last year, here's what we did the year before, and start to use that data to inform next quarter and next year's inventory?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually capture it and we look at ourselves over time, the trends, what consumers are doing, what's selling, what's not. And then we apply that to how we manage inventory. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I know when you mentioned e-commerce, my first thought was, I know talking to e-commerce people, they want to sell on Amazon. They want to sell from their own website. And sometimes they're working through other companies. And so you have to support each one. So you can't say, oh yeah, all my inventory is over here. It's just for, I'm going to shortchange Amazon this week because that'll hit your numbers very quickly. You won't be an Amazon seller anymore.
From our perspective, we look at demand sources. So demand sources are where you allocate inventory. So if it was Amazon, that's a demand source. Are they also housing inventory, right? And managing inventory? If not, then we want to look at the demand source, and also we want to manage inventory where you hold it and control it, right? If you don't control it, then that's their issue, right?
Yeah, and this is such a tricky item because in a perfect world, manufacturers only create stuff when there's a consumer. But that's not the way we all work to a point. If I go to buy a car, I'm not saying, oh, I'll wait 6 weeks until they build me one and deliver it. I want it right now because my car is in the shop and I don't want to pay $1,500. So I'm buying a new one today. And so we hold inventory and it's expensive. I think, and for many companies, inventory carrying costs are higher than their logistics costs. So when you say logistics and transportation, our first thought always is the over the road stuff. But if I'm holding lots of inventory in distribution centers across the country, across the world, that is my bigger problem, not my transportation costs, which are pretty. I can always get transportation. I can't always make a sale.
If you've got 30% too much inventory, you got to put it in warehouses that are heated and cooled. And there's an inventory carrying cost and the environmental footprint, right? The sustainability aspects of this, which I know we talked about that earlier, Joe. So, yeah.
By the way, I won't mention names, but an engagement I was on years ago, they were holding a whole bunch of inventory in a location. And I was like, is that saleable? And then a friend, a guy I was working with, went over and he said, no, that stuff's never going to sell. It's an obscure product. But anyone who's had been on a bonus structure will tell you, you don't want to say that should be scrapped because that hits the bottom line. And so it might affect your bonus. So everyone just calls it good inventory when it's not good. It's meaning it's never going to sell. You should say that's just loss. Nope, they don't want to do that. So there's a lot of game playing that happens with inventory.
So, Joe, I want to get back to your point about manufacturers and having too much the wrong inventory or not. So we're actually having conversations with retailers and manufacturers about how can we collaborate better, right? So the PAR metric and PAR concepts are perfect for that. I don't know if you remember back in the 80s and 90s, there was a big industry initiative in retail called collaborative forecasting and planning, right? CPFR, I think was the name of it. And I don't think that got a lot of press and lip service, but I don't think it really did much. It didn't really accomplish a lot in the industry. But what we're talking about now with our technology and the work, the PAR concept, product availability, and getting that rich demand signal that the retailer has and using that to help improve inventory efficiencies, not just for retailers, but also manufacturers, could have a really big impact and could move the needle on what you're talking about in terms of the sustainability and efficiency and just taking inventory out of the supply chain, while at the same time having what customers want. That's the ultimate goal. But then a byproduct is you have less of the wrong inventory, right? This inventory distortion issue. So we're very excited about it, actually.
Yeah, I love it. And getting back to it, PAR is product availability ratio, which you guys say that's 85%, 95%. And what is the number you're looking to be above?
It's a predictive number. What's the probability the customer is going to be satisfied, right? Take into account what they're looking for, the substitutes they'll accept, the wait time. We like to be above 95, 98, 99%, right? The customer shows up, you have what they're looking for, right? Whether it's in that physical location or they'll accept a 3-day wait time, you ship it to them within that time frame, or there's a substitute they'll accept, right? So how do you enable that substitution to be accepted? So that's conversations we're having with customers, and there's tools actually we have to help them do that.
Yeah. And so do you end up with like profiles? So getting back to I have what I want, right? I want to go and I want to buy and I'll buy this. I want this kind of tractor and I want it right now and I need it for this purpose. Do you end up with through PAR having different customer profiles where you go, yeah, this kind of customer needs this kind of customer doesn't care one bit about that?
That is a concept it's part of what we're doing, but it's still not fully developed because we're, again, just initially working on this. But what we do with the inventory piece is we look at an aggregate, right? We look at anonymous data in aggregate. We don't look at personally identified information to help build our inventory models. But then there's some tools with the customers we can use to help them express their preferences, what they're looking for, what they'll accept as substitutes and wait times, and then help that. So that's where we can actually capture some really unique information to help with that customer, but we don't capture that. It's anonymous from our perspective. We're not like a Google where we want to track everybody. So that's a kind of a key tenet of ours is privacy.
I love what you're doing. Again, I think this is a solution, obviously, for more sales. But I think also when we talk about sustainability, this is what we should be working on, is all the inventory, is the stuff that we have imperfect signals, imperfect demand signals. And we are since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, we've been trying to perfect it. We've gotten better and better, but this is a really nice solution for helping me not only make more sales, but also make some strides towards my sustainability goal that most companies have these days.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're asset light, right? We're just data. We capture data, we run our algorithms and models, and we help companies execute on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say the best sustainability wins are when you can say we made more money.
Absolutely.
And we made more money and we were good for the environment.
It goes without saying, Joe.
Exactly. So I'm talking with my friend Karl Swensen, and we're talking about solving the $1.8 trillion inventory distortion problem. Karl, I'm going to summarize, and I want to get your final thoughts on this topic. So first, we talked about distortion. What it is, it's having too much of the wrong inventory and not enough of the right inventory. And IHL, I'll try and put a link. If you give me a link, I'll put a link to IHL's research. And this is a huge problem. And we especially saw this during COVID, but I imagine it's always a problem. Next, we talked about PAR, which is the Pologic solution. And we're calling it the Parfix solution, which is the product availability ratio. And this is the chance that you have an acceptable substitution. And this is also helping to align all of the retail suppliers, because the suppliers are listening to the retailers on that demand. And we're all trying to figure out what that end consumer wants. We just talked about the sustainability being very important. And again, this is all about reducing lost sales due to inventory. Final thoughts on the topic, Karl Swensen.
So I want to say there's other people out there talking about the same thing. We've been doing this for a long time. This is Dr. Benoit's life research. This was going on 5 years ago, all these concepts and methodology. 2019, it was first applied and had great success at an ATV manufacturer. We then commercialized this. So there is a lot of research and work. We didn't just show up yesterday. I know we're a new company, Joe, but this is a really great proven technology and based on great research from one of the leading institutes in the country, engineering institutes. So I just want to say that. So there's a lot of deep knowledge has gone into what we do. And I'm just excited about the conversations we're having and the impact we're having. It's been great. And I get up every morning early and I'm excited to hit the day. That's the best thing, man. You have fun, right? We're having fun. It's been a great time.
You said you might be new at this, but none of you are new at this. And
the
research has been going on for a while. But also, I don't think we've been talking about these type of solutions because we just never had the data. I joke about it, but we had data that was all in silos and some of it still in file cabinets. So now as we start to bring all of this data into the same spreadsheet, so to speak, in the same system, we can start making better decisions. And again, this to me is just a slam dunk. I'm sure the people you're talking to feel the same way.
Yeah, we have a customer who uses Excel sheets. We have another one who uses SAP, right? Or we don't care. We get the data, run our analysis, and then very simple way we integrate or interface with the customer. So yeah, but clean data is important. Some are better than others, but yeah.
Yep. We all are in the place of cleaning up our data, but the better we can get that data, better decisions you guys can help us make. I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, a link to your website, and then link to that IHL research and any other links you give me. If you have white papers, I'll put those in the show notes.
Perfect. I can apply those. Yeah.
So what conferences will we see you and the fine folks from Pologic at?
Yeah, so we actually were just at a couple. We were at Retail Innovation Chicago last week or 2 weeks ago. Coming up, I think things will get quiet in July and August.
Thank God.
Summer. But we're planning to be at the EDGE conference for supply chain leaders and inventory management practitioners. That's going to be, I think, end of September, early October in Nashville. So we'll be at the EDGE conference. I think that's a fantastic one. We always are at NRF every year, mid-January in New York City. So that's an important one. And then Manifest. I don't know if you've...
Oh, yeah, I've been to Manifest a few times.
We'll be out there in Las Vegas in February. Absolutely.
I will see you there. I love Manifest. And people speak very highly of NRF. I've never been there. And I never heard of the EDGE conference. What is that all about?
It's a new one for me too, but just doing our research, it just seemed like a lot of supply chain professionals and people, especially on inventory. So we really want to talk to people that are focused on inventory. Yeah. So I'll know more about it if we talk again in October, November. I'll tell you more. So it just looks...
One of the things I noticed Manifest, and I mentioned this when I talked to Courtney, the president over there, this last Manifest had a lot more people interested and with solutions to inventory problems. And again, I think the transportation and logistics space has been very focused, obviously, on warehousing and fulfillment and over the road and obviously international shipping. But I think more and more we're starting to look and say, what can we do with that inventory? And again, I love what you guys are doing. And I think the reason those solutions are there is because the customers are there. They're saying, solve this for me.
Hey, Joe, I think if anyone wants to contact me, you've got the LinkedIn profile. Just send me a LinkedIn. Again, Karl, Karl, Swensen, 2 E's. There's no O's in there or A's. Joe.
I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile and people can reach out and talk.
People can find it. Yeah. Awesome.
Karl, thank you so much for taking the time. I love what you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Yes. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.